Welcome to the channel. We're doing jazz, not jazz, whatever that means. To me, it meant going outside the jazz section that I have for records. And I ended up with a couple that represent a high point in LA 60s music that was not folk rock. And also came from two famous canyons, Laurel Canyon and Topanga Canyon, two bands that at least work there and live there. I don't think either of my selections would be considered jazz by any collector, any jazz collector.
Yours is pretty high concept there. Um, I'm curious to see what these records are. Mine is not high concept. It's two records, one of which is jazzy but not jazz. The other, which is not jazzy at all, but made by a guy who is considered a jazz musician. My first record is Steely Dan's Asia from 1977. They'd been around for a little while at this point. This was, I don't know, their fifth record, maybe, something like that. They had gotten progressively less rock throughout the 70s, transforming into their final form of some sort of incredibly smooth amalgam of, pop, rock, jazz, funk, R&B. This record here, it's the next to last album in their original run. Um, and this is just a great album, song to song. Steely Dan was essentially these two guys, uh, Donald Fagen and Walter Becker. They were, the brain trust and driving force behind the band. They got smoother and more precise and even a little proggier. It has a sleazy kind of precision to it that I associate with, certain kinds of like loungy jazz. It's definitely got jazz chord progressions, but it's definitely, and there's a bit of like 70s style jazz funk, maybe a little bit of a feel of disco, but without, of course, the beat. 40 people played on this record, including Wayne Shorter, uh, noted jazz saxophonist, and Bernard Purdie, drummer extraordinaire. This is an incredibly lush record. The production is massive. I really can't stress how technically perfect this record is, how exacting it is. It has this weird combination of sounding incredibly smooth and laid back, but the underpinnings are quite technical. There's a famous story uh, about the song Peg on the album that I guess Fagen and Becker brought in a parade of session guitarists to play, the 15-second solo or whatever. Yeah, gives you a sense of the monomaniacal focus of this thing. And the result is just a great album, top to bottom. If Asia was put together by an army, this is just one guy, a Swedish jazz musician named Chister Bohen, and he is playing a West African uh, sort of kind of harp called the Donzo Ngoni. This guy, he's generally associated with jazz. He played with Don Cherry for a bunch of years in the 70s. He went down to Morocco in the early 70s. He discovered Gnawa music. I guess he kept going south. He ended up in Mali, but he hooked up with these, masters of this instrument. I guess he learned from one of these guys. They taught him the patterns, as he puts it, and he started to come up with his own. It is a recording of just him playing this. The Gnawa music that I mentioned earlier, that's actually not a bad touchstone because this kind of sounds like the gimbri that they use in Gnawa music. It's a stringed instrument, maybe a little bit like a bass or something like that. And that's all it is. So this is an austere record, but it's quite beautiful. Um, it has a deeply hypnotic quality. Um, and you know, it's quite meditative as well. So highly recommended.
Okay, I have Spirit, um, the Model Shop soundtrack for a Jacques Demy movie, which is sort of it's the European take on, the hippie movement in California. Not a very good movie, so they recorded this in '68, didn't come out to 2005. But he actually picked this band after seeing them in a local Hollywood club because they had that Hollywood vibe, which he wanted in his movie. It's mostly instrumental, although Jay Ferguson does sing a couple songs, but it's really led by Randy California and his inimitable guitar tone, which is sort of like a syrupy sustain, and nobody has a tone like Randy California. So also his bandmate John Locke collaboratively wrote some of the songs. And then his uncle on drums, who is actually a jazz drummer, has a very light touch. So it is not prog in any way. There's no country rock in it. It is a collaborative jazz rock album. And the songs flow from song to song. It's got strong melodic themes, and the overall tone is eerie and maybe an acid hangover. There's a lot of improvisation, but it's more the sound of jazz players that actually chose rock because of the economic benefits. Uh, it's not all eerie. Some of it's sort of easygoing, but it's always introspective. And there's great sort of intuition in the players interacting with each other. It's a sophisticated music listen. I keep it in my section to provoke conversation at parties. Then I have Frank Zappa, who lived and practiced in Laurel Canyon. And this is Hot Rats from 1969. It's his second solo record after the demise of the Mothers of Invention. And it is a jazz fusion instrumental rock record. So who's that on the front? That is Miss Christine, Christine Fricka, who's like a famous LA groupie. Oh, was also a member of the GTOs. And it's taken at Earl Flynn's abandoned Hollywood Hills swimming pool. Zappa always put together great bands, and Lowell George is playing rhythm guitar on this. Ian Underwood on woodwinds and Organis Maximus, whatever that is, some kind of keyboard. And there's several guest violinists, including Sugarcane Harris. So there's a lot of modal improvisational solos and stately melodic themes that Frank wrote. It's undeniable, for me, his best record. Also, Secret Weapon, Captain Beefheart, with his distinctive vocals that actually pull this away from jazz, but add credence to the project. They also recorded together on Bongo Fury, which was a live record. I actually don't have a favorite song on here because they're all good. There's the inner sleeve. It's a reissue. It's got great mastering. It's on Zappa's own label. There's the back. I consider this top shelf jazz rock with a touch of classical because Frank has stated that he has influences of early modern composers like Varese. And I keep it in my ready to play at a party section. Well, there's nothing like those ghosts that listen to jazz like 24/7
That's a lot of jazz.
facing an
Jazzy.
apparition. Since it is jazz, not jazz. Thelonious Monk.
Listen to Coltrane a lot.
Say it again, loud.
Melodicist?
Melodicist. Yeah. Monk is my man. A song about a chimney sweep facing an
Jazzy?
apparition.
I start around, I don't know, 60, 61. Coltrane. I love his green sleeves, actually.
I see. Tell me a story about meeting a witch in the forest.
Some ghosty shit, maybe, or because it gets dark where she is.
She's profoundly scared of ghosts. They take her mind off the hauntings.
Giant, rambling old house. Creaky floors and like squeaking hinges on doors and winds rattling the panes. It was just a gnarly place.
Let my mind wander towards the paranormal.
Gonna be ghosts anywhere.
It's like talking about these mythical race of people that don't really matter. And who are they?
It's like a blackout poem.
So, not jazz or jazz? That's the question.
That is the question. To jazz or not to jazz?